John.
Sean, moments ago, Mitch McConnell, who will be here in the next few minutes, reiterated that he is not a fan of the president's tweets. We understand, and you've explained several times, that the president likes to have this conduit where he can talk directly to the American people. But does he sometimes cross the line where his tweets become the news, become the agenda, and it actually impedes his ability to get things done?
Well, in the context of your question, I think you helped answer it. The president is the most effective messenger on his agenda, and I think his use of social media, he now has a collective total of close to 110 million people across different platforms, gives him an opportunity to speak straight to the American people, which has proved to be a very, very effective tool.
Using it and using it wisely can be two different things.
Right, and I think the same people who are critiquing his use of it now critiqued it during the election, and it turned out pretty well for him then.
Are President Trump's tweets considered official White House statements?
Well, the president is the president of the United States, so they're considered official statements by the president of the United States.
If I can follow up on that question, is President Trump at all concerned that his tweets could be used against him at the level of the Supreme Court when the ACLU takes on this travel ban case?
Well, I think we've made it clear with respect to that that the court should follow the law, and I think the danger is real, the law is clear, and there's no question that we should prevail at the Supreme Court. Amen.
Thank you, Sean. Can you tell us where the president's going to be and what he's going to be doing on Thursday at 10 a.m.? Is he going to watch former Director Comey's testimony up on Capitol Hill?
The president's got a full day on Thursday. There's an infrastructure meeting with mayors and governors to talk about some of the projects that need to get out of that public-private partnership that I just discussed. He's giving a speech midday to the Faith and Freedom Coalition downtown. There's going to be a very busy day, as all of his days are. Look, as I just said, the president's going to have a very, very busy day, and as he does all the time, and I think his focus is going to be on pursuing the agenda and the priorities that he was elected to do.
I wanted to ask about the president's tweets this morning on the Saudi-led isolation of Qatar. I had two questions. The first was the president seemed to be taking credit for the action, so I'm wondering if the White House actively encouraged sort of rupture among the Gulf states, and did the president or anybody in the administration speak to the Saudis before it happened about what was going to happen?
This issue is not new. It's been there's been tension among Qatar's neighbors for quite some time, and the situation was notified through proper diplomatic channels. The United States continues to be in close communication with all the parties to resolve the issues and restore cooperation, which is so important to regional security there. I think that there is note that his message of toughness on terror finance and extremism is being heeded by countries in the region, but the U.S. still wants to see this issue de-escalated and resolved immediately, keeping with the principles that the president laid out in terms of defeating terror financing and extremism.
So, sorry, can I just, well, there's a lot of concerns in Qatar that the move, especially with the support from the president, is aimed at removing the emir or his family from power. Considering that the president believes that the government there is financing terror groups, would regime change there be beneficial or detrimental?
The president had a very, very constructive conversation with the emir during his visit in Riyadh. At that time, he was very heartened by the emir's commitment to formally joining the Terrorist Financing Targeting Center and showing their commitment to this issue.
Sarah said yesterday in response to a question about who it was that changed the president's NATO speech, taking out the Article 5 language. She would check on that and get back to us. I know you didn't make that commitment, but she did. Can you give us an answer to that question?
I don't have that. I don't know. So I will ask Sarah to follow up with you.
Can you confirm that that in fact is what happened? There was one speech and a different one was prepared late in the process, and that speech did in fact take some of those who believe they were aware of the first speech by surprise.
I think, as we've commented before, the president's speech at the top talked about Article 5. We were at a NATO Article 5 commemoration. The idea that we would recommit ourselves to something that we were clearly there to celebrate seems a bit silly, but I don't know about the contents of the speech, but I think, frankly, it's a bit of a silly discussion, because as we addressed at the time, the president's presence at an Article 5 commemoration and his discussion about NATO invoking Article 5 for the first time ever after 9/11 pretty much speaks for itself in terms of our commitment to both NATO and all 13 articles that make up being part of that treaty.
Would it be a silly exercise to find out exactly what happened?
Well, again, there's a lot of things that happened.
Significant reporting that there was one version and then another version was delivered. And that
I
was the
understand, but
last
I would
change.
argue that there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes in terms of every speech, every meeting that the president has in terms of preparation, and until the president gets a version that he feels is appropriate on any number of subjects, it's not appropriate for us to go out there and share it. But I will follow up with Sarah on that thing. But I think to the broader point is that the president remains entirely committed to NATO and to all of the articles, not just Article 5.
Last question. How would you describe the president's level of confidence in the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions?
I have not had a discussion with him about that.
Last time you said that, there was a development.
I'm asking, I'm answering a question, which is I have not had that discussion with him.
You can't say he has confidence in his attorney general?
I said I have not had a discussion with him on the question. If I haven't had a discussion with him about a subject, I tend not to speak about it.
Sean, the Chinese government has rejected a call from the State Department to release 3 activists that were detained amidst Chinese shoe companies
Right.
produce shoes for Ivanka Trump and others. Does the White House have any specific comment on these detentions? Does the president, does Ivanka Trump want to see these people released?
I think the State Department has made it very clear the U.S. position on that. We'll continue to exert the proper diplomatic pressure on that.
Did we hear from the president?
It's
or
a
Ivanka
State
Trump?
Department issue, and I would suggest that you follow up with them. Olivier, I'm sorry, hold on.
Can I
You
just
wait.
say the London mayor is saying that the president should no longer come on a state visit there? Are there any plans at this point? I know he's been invited.
He
Is he still intending to visit at some
He
point?
appreciates Her Majesty's gracious invitation.
Thank you, Sean. Two on Afghanistan. Before the foreign trip, the president's first foreign trip, senior officials were telling us that you guys would unveil the results of the Afghan review and the president's decision-making after the foreign trip. Do you have a timeline for us? When can we expect this announcement?
I think the president will continue to discuss that with Secretary Mattis, General McMaster, and others, and when he feels as though he's comfortable with a plan that he wants to push forward, we'll let you know.
What does victory look like in Afghanistan?
I think a stable government, us free from threats, and that's, again, I think we've commented on that before. We want to make sure that we root out all forms of terrorism and provide stability in the region. Dave.
Sean, yesterday there was the first case of a leaker in this administration being arrested. The Justice Department announced the charges, and it seems pretty clear from reading her social media posts that she is an opponent of the president and his policies. First of all, was the president made aware? Did he have a reaction to this arrest?
I don't know, and as you guys know, with respect to all kind of ongoing investigations, we would never comment on an ongoing investigation. That being said, I think that you've heard the president very clearly talk about the concern that he has about unauthorized disclosures of classified and sensitive information and the threat that they can pose to national security. So while I don't want to comment on any specific case or allegation, I think it is important to note that any disclosure of classified or sensitive information can clearly threaten our national security. John.
Thanks a lot, Sean. You have said on many occasions from the podium that the president's tweet speaks for itself. Yesterday, in a series of tweets, the president faulted the Department of Justice for its defense of the president's executive order on immigration. Given that he has faulted the DOJ, does he also fault the person who leads the DOJ, the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions?
I think I've answered that question.
But as it relates to
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Thank
Despite what you have said today and what Sarah
John
said
gave his
yesterday. Oh, you said John. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, John. Despite what you just said about the dispute in the Persian Gulf, it's clear the president is taking sides in this. Why?
In what way?
He said today on Twitter, all reference was pointed to Qatar. Perhaps this will be the beginning of the end to the horror of terrorism.
Well, I think as I commented on this, he's noting the message of toughness on terror financing. No, that's not what I said. I think he had a very productive discussion with the Emir during his visit in Riyadh. He was very pleased that they joined with the other Gulf nations in their support of the Terror Financing Center to root that out, and he's pleased with the movements he's taken. But obviously he is very concerned about terror financing and stomping out ISIS and all forms of terrorism. John Gizzi.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. Two questions. First, is the president comfortable with Robert Mueller as the special prosecutor, and does he believe that a president has the right to replace the special prosecutor if he or she exceeds his mandate in that position?
literally have not had that kind of conversation. I have not discussed that with the president.
Right. My other question is this. On Sunday, the president put out a very forceful commemoration of the Battle of Midway 70 years ago. He did not know anything about the 25th anniversary of Tiananmen Square in China, the uprising, the building of the Goddess of Liberty. Is there going to be any statement about the brave uprising in China of a quarter century ago?
I'll look into that, John, for you. With that, guys, I know the House and Senate leadership are here, so thank you guys very much.
Sean, come on.